Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to The Great Retention with Camber Parker, sponsored by the YoProKnow. I'm Camber, your young professional expert and founder of the YoProKnow, where we bring you the answers you need to know about how to hire, develop, and retain the best talent, starting with the young professionals you work with. There are a lot of young professional fish in the sea, as I like to say, but how do you catch them? And what do you do once you reel them in? That's where we come in. Today, I am so excited to have Charlotte McDavid join us, Assistant Superintendent for Transformation at Greenville County Schools, joining us in Greenville, South Carolina. Charlotte and I met through a leadership program through the Greenville Chamber, known fondly by many as Leadership Greenville Class 49, and we have stayed connected since our graduation in May of 2023. As the first educator represented on this show, I knew she would be a great person to guide us through conversations surrounding both the next generation in school today and the recruiting and retention of young professional educators, which is a very hot topic by many. Charlotte, I'm so happy you're here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Camber.
It's always fun to reconnect with our LG class members, and I know a lot of people listening and watching have had experience in that program, so they really understand that feeling, but it means so much to me that you're here today.
Thank you.
We're going to start with what I like to call a lightning round. So in a few sentences or less, which I know is sometimes hard, try to answer some of these questions. So first, tell us something that is not on your resume, so something people would not know just by looking at a piece of paper.
People may not know by looking at my resume that while all of the education and experiences and all the busy things are there, that actually my faith and my family come first. I do a lot of work, but all of that work is built on the foundation of faith and family.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Anything else? Sorry, I looked like I was about to cut you off. And I know I've met your son and your husband once or twice, but I know throughout the year we were in that class together, you spoke about them often. So I know how important that is to you.
It is.
Thanks for sharing. What is your favorite productivity tool?
I am a big fan of Google Docs and AI. Google Docs gives me the ability to collaborate quickly, efficiently, and to have input on multiple scenarios. And AI, of course, is the new tool that we're using to work more efficiently.
Yeah, and we've got to talk about AI today because we're talking to somebody in education. I'm just curious to know. So we'll put a pin in that and we're going to come back. Can you tell us about a lesson that you learned as a young professional?
I learned to keep learning. As a young professional, I learned that this career pathway is not one that I could ever get complacent in, and just to continue to develop, whether I was growing vertically or, as I would say, horizontally in terms of education, but to continue learning. And I'm still doing that today.
Yeah, wonderful. I love to hear that. What is your preferred communication style?
I'm a Gen Xer, so I must say that a face-to-face or a phone call is my preferred method. I have adapted, and I can use technology with the best of them. I text, we can use Slack, we can communicate in a number of ways, but I still strongly feel that nothing beats face-to-face. That nonverbal communication gives you a feel that you do not get with words on a phone or on a device.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we were just talking before the interview today about some of the data that we're collecting, and communication is a big part of that data. So we're going to be able to release a lot of really important information that I think people will be surprised by, and that face-to-face is actually shifting back to a priority for a lot of current young professionals. Now, I'm curious to know from the future young professional side what that looks like. And of course, we're going to talk about that today. So thank you for helping us with that quick lightning round. Next, Charlotte, I would love to just have you give the audience a little more background on you that we might not have covered in your intro.
This is my 30th year in education, and I have been a teacher, an assistant principal, and worked at district level half of the career, 15 years as a district administrator.
Yeah.
And I've enjoyed every bit of it. still the most impactful way that I feel we make a difference with students is one child at a time, one day at a time, and one success at a time. So over 30 years, that has not changed, and my heart for it still continues.
We got to pause and just if there was a huge crowd, I would be like, all right, applause everyone, because 30 years is such a huge accomplishment.
Years,
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's really, really incredible. I love that we are talking today about retention and how do we get more people like you? How do we get more Charlottes that can come in? I know there's no other Charlotte out there, but how do we get more people that are willing to serve, right? And tap into the next generation who can do that. So obviously today we are talking about Gen Z and millennials that will make up 2/3 of the workforce by 2030. But we also want to learn more about future young professionals. So tell us about some core behaviors that you are seeing in 1, students today, and 2, young talent today.
Thank you. Our students embrace technology somewhat seamlessly. They use it as their primary means of communicating and learning. The days of asking someone a question or not being able to find an answer are over. We are always able to do research with multiple streams of answers and being able to sort through that and discern what is appropriate, what is correct, what is unbiased. That is a skill that our students today are learning to navigate. These students today exhibit a strong desire for authenticity and purpose. I think in their pursuits, they're seeking to align to their values. While they do have an awareness of lifestyle and what they want to have, I think our students today want to be authentically aligned to what they strongly believe in. And they have overall, and you see this in the social media movements. I was working when I started in 2008, When I started in 2008 in a prior district, we were looking at a system of research called KnowledgeWorks. And they talked about students of the future, which are the students of today, and how much they would be impacted and impact society with social media and have a voice. And they have a heightened awareness of social issues. They have a strong desire to create positive change in their communities and in the world. So that is something our students today bring with them to the table that we as educators are working to embrace. Our young educators, they do value collaboration and feedback. They also leverage technology to enhance their teaching practices. We learned a lot during the pandemic and post-pandemic about the prioritization of the work-life balance. And we see young educators seeking workplaces that offer some flexibility and also opportunities to grow. We see young educators, similar to the societal impact, wanting to make a difference. They are really committed to equity, inclusivity, advocating for diversity and inclusion and cultural responsiveness. And they are more aware of the differences in our universe and in their classrooms than our educators in prior years. And I think that is, again, because of the connectivity they've experienced over technology.
Yeah. Well, one, thank you for that really thoughtful answer. That you can tell you put a lot of preparation in here, but this is also what you are doing day to day, right? So probably not too much preparation since it's really like you touch it every day. But I like that there were so many more positive comments here. When you talk about the next generation or younger generations, you don't always hear positive comments, right? From experienced professionals. Every educator that I've talked to or spoken with who have a pretty significant tenure, they always talk about it positively, as you have, which is probably why you're in this profession, right? But that's not always the case. So I think later when we talk about recruiting and retaining this talent, and also talking about how you, what you see as the future generation moves into the workforce, I would like to touch on some of those maybe misconceptions and those beliefs of younger generations. So just hold that thought as well. As you know, Charlotte, for most of the listeners on this show, they are business owners or leaders looking for proactive ways to increase retention and find the best talent. This is the number one problem I hear all the time. What are some tools that Greenville County is using to attract and retain talent in 2024?
Greenville County Schools is a large employer in the system in South Carolina. We have 10,000 employees. We have over 6,000 teachers. And in attracting new talent, one of the things that I think we recognize is that traditional ways, college recruitment fairs, going out the face-to-face, that is a great start. But we are needing and having to market differently for this new audience. We're using social media campaigns across multiple platforms. Personal connections have gone well, and really, I'm working right now with a program in Greenville County Schools. You may have heard of it, called Elevate. In our Office of School Transformation, we are re-envisioning 2 faculty and staffs at 2 different schools, Lakeview Middle School and Alexander Elementary.
Okay.
So we had our current staff, some of which chose to reapply to be a part of Elevate, and some of which who did not. But in hiring over 100, 150 staff members, we had to think differently. And through social media, we have connections. So I will use as an example our principal at Lakeview Middle School. I'm on the board of the Children's Museum of the Upstate, and I was congratulating a member on getting her doctorate. And she had learned about Elevate, and she said, I want you to know that Miss Couch inspired me to go into education. And she shared this story of being a middle school student and how, as a student, she saw this person come in with fire and energy, and she just wanted to be a part of that. Now, she's not in the classroom, but she's impacting education nonetheless through the Children's Museum and her work in Greenville and Spartanburg. I asked her to follow up, and I wanted to, of course, let Mrs. Couch know. And she said she may not remember my name, but she had an impact on me that I will never forget. So in education, as we veteran educators are in the classrooms working with students, we have the best opportunity to recruit.
Yeah, absolutely.
When students see us doing something that we believe in, that we love, and that passion, we hope that we ignite something in them that makes them want to give back.
Yeah.
In Greenville County Schools, we are looking to attract educators, but because we are a very large system, we're also looking for those who are interested in human resources, healthcare, athletics. We're looking for those who are interested in technology, careers across the board.
Yeah.
So we are trying to show our students where all of the avenues are. And so we target by attracting talent in those traditional ways, but we do have an advantage of having those personal relationships and people that we've connected with across not only our schools, but in our professional networks and across the country as we continue to network.
Yeah.
In retaining that talent, I know that in your research you found that we love collaboration. We love meaningful work. We love contributing to something that makes a difference. As we were looking at our strategies, working with our Office of Communication in Greenville County Schools, another career opportunity for some, we decided to actually market not just the compensation package, but the why, that we let people know if you're interested in being a part of a once-in-a-career opportunity, this is it. And we're attracting people who have demonstrated success and want to do that further with a group and a community and that shared vision. We're also attracting people who are coming, new talent, who are excited about the opportunity to, again, make that meaningful work in their day-to-day, a lasting impact on the future. We are working, as we're retaining talent, yes, we build those. There is an effort to make certain that our teachers are cared for. And we try to go beyond the swag and the handouts and the Gene Days. We are working forward-thinking in this work of having our teachers not only network, we are doing that, but to help them to grow individually with Elevate. Our teachers who are part of this are going to be a part of transformation.
Mm-hmm.
That we feel is going to continue to grow teacher leaders.
Mm-hmm.
So as we recruit, we know this movement will expand, and we're letting them know you're already a teacher leader. Come be a part of this, so that as Greenville County shares the success and the impact, you then in the next round of transformation schools, you are then becoming a teacher leader.
Right.
And we are not waiting for people to come to the table. We're tapping the talent that we know.
Yeah.
And I think there's something that goes along with recognizing and appreciate both of our principals, Dr. Dawn Hooker and Jennifer Couch, when they were asked to be a part of this, it is because of what they've already done.
Right.
And while neither were seeking a new opportunity, knowing that someone recognized, valued, appreciated in a way that we wanted to expand their reach and their impact, that helped them to make the decision to come on board.
Right.
Our young talent wants that. They want to know that they're making a difference and that they can share it in a larger audience.
Again, wow to your answer. You mentioned transformation, right? That is literally in your title.
It is.
So that's really impactful. And I love that the first kind of major takeaway from what you just shared was recruitment starts in the classroom.
Yes.
Right? And that's something that a lot of industries do not have the advantage of. But something that you were saying made me think that there are some practices that corporations outside of the education world, they can adopt some of these practices. Obviously, they can't get in the classroom 24/7 like you all can, but there could be something to learn from the education system in this sense. And I don't believe that a lot of organizations and Fortune 500s think that way, but I would love to hear your thoughts on that. But the second piece is this why. The why, yes, compensation is important, but meaningful work is equally, if not more important to this next generation of teachers and talent. So I love that you're acknowledging that and that you're really paying attention, because you're correct. Our research does show from 2023 that meaningful work was listed number 2 as a driving motivator for young professionals in staying or leaving a company and choosing to work for a company, which I think is pretty impactful. So do you have any takeaways or thoughts on those comments?
I will say that business and industry, as we come along in partners, we know that we can't be the only field that our students work in, but in every community in Greenville County, we have business, industry, large and small, and we invite them to come alongside, even at the elementary level, to begin to introduce students to their careers, to the opportunities with project-based learning. We are expanding that, and we are often looking for companies and businesses to become that authentic audience that our students present their projects to at even a very beginning, in addition to the other career alignment opportunities we have. Launch Greenville. We have worked with the Chamber of Commerce and Launch Greenville, and a number of our students, a growing number of our students who've expressed interest in career pathways are working through Launch Greenville in internships. And that not only says we want you, but it says we're willing to invest in your development. And if we do want, if our industry, our leaders, our businesses want our young adults, there has to be a willingness to invest, to make certain that the students know what's being made at your company. Why would I want to be here? How does this make a difference every day? And those are the opportunities that they have to engage with our community through Elevate. We met last week with a group of community leaders, and we talked about how actually many of our goals and mission statements align with that of Elevate, because we are looking at changes in our community, looking at how we're adapting our education to meet the needs. And who better to help us come alongside than our existing community, from our churches to our businesses to our nonprofits. There's so many ways to engage, but by doing it early, the students who make those decisions, I go back to the student who then is now on the Children's Museum of the Upstate Board. She made that decision in middle school. Wow. Others make similar decisions when they have those opportunities.
Yeah,
so
I love those kind of stories. I'm glad that you came back to that. Let's now talk about the pandemic. right? Obviously had an impact on everybody, but of course, the school system. I know that a lot of teachers left teaching after the pandemic, at least from peers and stories of peers. I'm sad to say that a lot of my teacher friends are no longer teachers. A few of them are, but there was a turnover at some point. And so I would be curious to know, are the retention efforts that you talked about and you answered a moment ago, are those, I guess, tell us about the current state, I guess, based on what has happened in the last 4 years, and just tell us what's been going on, because I think a lot of us are curious and interested. It sounds like you have a really great tap on retention, but again, the pandemic impacted everyone.
It did. Earlier, I talked about continuing to learn. And the pandemic forced us to learn a lot of things very quickly. In education, we were just in Greenville County Schools rolling out devices. We were completing our one-to-one initiative in the fall, August of 2019. Little did we know that would make a huge difference. Yeah. Well, the way we work changed, and we were forced to learn very quickly how to adapt and make things work for students and for teachers. We looked at our retention rate in Greenville County Schools. It still remained lower than the state turnover rate for teachers, and we created some new opportunities. While we've had a virtual program and a virtual presence for a number of years, we expanded that virtual presence, and in that year, we were able to serve 26,000 students virtually during COVID. We started this was funny, we had our process set up for doing interviews because we thought we'd have a small virtual program very early on. And we used our systems, we set up our Calendly, we were so great. We interviewed the first fantastic. 75 to 100 people we interviewed. It was perfect. And then the numbers flooded in from students. Yeah. So we ended up having teachers who maybe perhaps had not chosen or selected virtual. They went virtual. And so we had to adapt to make sure that everyone was up to speed, that our tools, our resources for students were readily available to everyone. And what I can say is, moving forward, I was having a conversation last evening with a colleague, Mrs. Dean, about one position that's now open in our virtual program. We have veterans who have taught virtually, who, when the students went back, of course, our teachers went back, but that adaptation still holds today. So we have been able to have teachers who are able to work from home, teaching virtually, similar to what is done in other programs like Virtual SC or Keystone. We are now able to compete with those parents for whom that is a viable option. So our teachers have more options and more flexibility. Great. Because we do have a larger district, if there is someone who wants a different level, they want to go from elementary to middle or middle to high, we have opportunities, and we try to make certain that before people leave the profession, we find out why. You talk about your research. We use Upbeat, a tool that we contract with to interview our teachers every year. And our teachers give us feedback on the things that are important to them. And we as a leadership team look at those holistically as a district to try to make adaptations. We also challenge our principals to work as well to figure out the things that would help their teachers be retained. Collaboration, though, is one key that I cannot underestimate. So in Greenville County Schools, we have been using professional learning communities. DeFore refers to them as PLCs, but we've been using that approach for a number of years. But in the last 2 years, we've doubled down. And we've worked with a company called Solution Tree to give that training to our principals, our instructional coaches, our assistant principals, our instructional leaders, so that they can then go back and facilitate stronger, more collaborative professional learning communities. And when we talk with our teachers and our teams in schools, those schools that have low turnover have professional learning communities who are making a difference. They collectively feel like an essential part of a team that's growing success for individual students and groups of students. And by doing that, they're growing the success of the schools. They're doing that through the professional learning communities, and we want to enhance that. Our younger educators, of course, are now collaborating with our veterans. We're giving them a mentor in that PLC. We're designing those quite intentionally to make certain that we have the experience and we have the balance of views so that when they work together, they make a difference.
Yeah.
We study at our schools. We have 101 sites in Greenville County Schools. When we study to see the retention rates at every individual school, those schools that have had little to no turnover in recent years have also been schools that have experienced a larger degree of success. And when speaking with the principals, how does that happen? Our professional learning communities are working. That is how we are working internally to be sure that our teachers have the mentorship, the support from instructional coaches, from administrators, the support from all of our other teams in our school. We have On Track Greenville, which you know from the United Way is a major initiative that we can have conversations about individual students on a regular basis and be sure that all of our supports are aligned. That's how our teachers are choosing to stay.
Yeah.
So while I'm a 30-year veteran, we look in our classrooms and we see those that have higher numbers of years of experience wanting to stay. Through Elevate, we're again trying to tap into them to say, come bring this to our schools. We will incentivize and compensate and celebrate, but we need your leadership. And we're not just waiting for them to apply. We're tapping them to say, come on over and bring it.
That's really incredible. I mean, I feel like I've just learned so much about your system, and I'm proud to live in Greenville, where obviously I'm not naive enough about the system, the education world, to know that you guys are not a major player here. Like, you know that not other districts are able to do this. So again, really kudos to you. And I want to keep moving on because there are a couple more questions that I really want to get to, but just congratulations, because that's pretty impressive that you have so many different efforts taking place that are really, it's a holistic approach is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
So really excited to hear about that. Moving on and talking about the pandemic's impact as well, looking at, as we as leaders prepare for the future generations that are coming into the workforce, so the latter half of Gen Z and future Gen Alpha that we're just starting to uncover, right? Just we, meaning the business world. Y'all you've been seeing Gen Alpha for some time now. How can leaders prepare for them? And I think one of the number one questions on everyone's mind is, did the pandemic impact these students? I think the obvious answer is yes, but just how much did it impact them, and what can business leaders look for?
When we look at Gen Alpha and the emphasis or the importance that they place on the work-life balance, that came out more so during the pandemic, and people held on to that. They looked in their lives and they saw what was happening with loved ones. They saw the impact of spending more time with their children and their families, and they enjoyed that. And so they began to really seek more opportunities to work in a space that allows them to have and maintain that work-life balance. So for business and industries that are now working, how does that appeal? How can we maximize that? I think that growing professionally is one way that we continue to support them. We mentioned earlier AI. The technology, using and leveraging technology so that we work smarter and not harder. We are finding ways that teachers can spend more time talking about how they teach than what they're teaching today, talking about the impact of their teaching than what they taught yesterday. So what we want to do is, as you're looking towards investing in and bringing about the change, you also want to lend an ear, give them a voice in how things work in their business and industry. There are so many differences. If you want to teach, you can do that from a number of different places at a number of different avenues, but how can we make your experience in our school support that work-life balance? Everything doesn't have to be done in the school building. Everything does not have to be done between the hours of 7:30 or 8 to 3. We have other ways of appealing to the younger generation, but really keeping in mind that work-life balance. I will say that I hope that education comes back to that forefront, because in the old days, that's what teachers wanted. They wanted to be on their children's schedules. They wanted to be home in the summer. Now we still have professional development. We still have other opportunities. However, for those who seek to have a shorter work year, 190 days, possibly 195 for some positions, and if our governor has his way to expand that so we have more opportunities for professional development. But this is truly a way to come back and balance and to contribute to the world of work.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Work-life balance is something that we talk about often. We also hear life over work mentality, maybe not necessarily with Gen Alpha, but that's a trend that we're starting to see among among current young professionals. And often when we talk to leaders, baby boomers, Gen Xers, a lot of them say, "Oh, work-life balance, like whatever." That's the kind of trend that we hear. If leaders do not adapt to this way of thinking and use it to their advantage, right? You can use it, you can harness this information and model a workplace that is not 100% remote. It just means you have to offer some flexibility, and other generations want flexibility.
They do.
Just no secret there. I talk to a lot of people across all generations, and they're like, we're happy if we're in office 4 days a week and we can be at home 1 day a week, or can we leave at 3? And are we going to get slapped on the wrist? And so I think that it's important to hear that 26,000 students, right? Like the overarching theme is this work-life balance concept. And we know that across the country, it's also replicating there. So thank you for letting us know that really important information.
You mentioned life over work, and I want to just go back to that why. Life over work in the sense, too, that if the work is what you enjoy, if the work is a part of your life and your mission and your passion, then you have greater satisfaction. And we have to continue to support our educators in acknowledging and connecting their why to their work. Because they get up early, they stay late, and they do the extra, not because it's required. They do it because they have a true burning passion and desire to make a difference. And so we have to continue to embrace and celebrate that which makes our profession unique.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for adding that. So we've already talked a little bit about how some leaders are a little nervous for future talent, right? Just in some of the most recent comment that I just made, due to technology, right? They're a little scared of the technology, even though of the technology shift, even though they shouldn't be. And I hear often work ethic. Young people don't have any work ethic. They don't want to work hard. What would you tell those leaders? And again, how can they shift their mindsets to recognize that young people do work? They do have a work ethic. Just are they not being engaged? Are they being tapped? So what are your thoughts there?
I think we need to embrace it. They talk about work ethic. Our students today have such a large amount of creativity and their ability to innovate and see things and make things that have not been made before, that the work ethic they pour into it really supports what they seem or deem valuable or interesting, yes. So in our schools, we do look at project-based learning. We look at STEM, STEAM. We look at the arts and ways that our students can be creative and find their own personal voice in what they do every day. But their work has to align to to their individuality. And for the technology or using it, I hear them saying that our students are maybe not working, that the work ethic is not as strong. The work ethic is different. I watch our students create, build, innovate. I watch students work without direction. I watch them work independently. I watch them grow in ways that they're challenging themselves beyond what we do in the classroom. And as we begin to find those unique pathways and opportunities to allow them to do that. Oftentimes through technology, I think we'll see them more engaged. But what it looks like, I think every generation has that. You didn't work as hard as we did. You didn't work as hard as we did. But to go back to that work harder, not smarter, that mentality, Alan Mogensen talked about that back in around the time of World War II, it was 1930s. He was talking about that, and it became sort of the work of how we modernize it, but technology is that way. And so are we working the same way that we did 30, 100 years ago? We are not. Are we less effective and less efficient? Let's start looking at the outcomes and not looking at the amount of work it took to do that. Because if I'm able to do my work in less time, to do it more effectively and more efficiently, then that does not mean I need to be at work until 10 o'clock or work and stay up all night. I need to be able to do that work and do it smarter, not harder. But that ability to innovate, I can then pass those methodologies along to others. And this is now how we work.
Right. No, that's a soundbite that we will be using. Let me tell you that. I think that's the reason. That, if anything, is what I'm going to take away. We've talked about so much, but just that right there, you have to look at the outcome.
Yes.
If the same thing can get done, if you can get something done faster, quicker, why is the journey what people focus on? So we could have an entire episode about that. But in our remaining time, Charlotte, I do want to ask you, it sounds like we know what the school systems are doing to prepare the next generation of leaders based on what we've talked about already today. It sounds like you have a lot in place. So I'm really impressed again to hear that. But as a growing number of young professionals enter the workforce, this group that we've talked so much about today, and the Gen X and baby boomer generations begin to retire, where do you see the biggest challenge in the education industry?
Our biggest challenge is going to be that transition or bridge. The transition between our veterans who are retiring or exiting the profession, capturing the historical excellence, the knowledge about how students learn, about effective ways of teaching and engaging students, with what we have in our young educators who are coming in, helping them to understand the value of that. That is going to be an increasing challenge. But bridging that gap, and I say it's a gap, but I see that some of our veteran teachers are also on the cutting edge of technology. But when we enter that workforce, if we are able to tie them together in those, again, professional learning communities and have that baton be passed to the next generation, that you have the content, you have the talent, the skills, the things to do it, but now you have these new ways of adapting with technology to do it differently, I think will be better. But that is a balance that we're going to have to use. We're also looking at adapting our technology, our teaching, our tools, they're changing. And the learning styles, we have to make sure that our teaching resonates with different learners. So being able to adapt with the preferences of our younger generations and leveraging the experience while also that wisdom from the retiring ones say, hey, how do we connect with the newer generation of students who are coming in and what resonates with them? So overall, that challenge of balancing our traditional with our new educators, balancing our students and their individual needs, balancing the needs of our students and our needs of our teachers, and then trying to cater to the diverse learners across the board. So we have to be intentional about our mentors, about our placement. We have to be intentional about all of it.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you are, I feel confident that we have people like you in the school system, Charlotte. So really, again, just amazing episode today. I feel like I learned a lot personally, but again, the leaders and business leaders who are listening and watching this episode, they will have some major takeaways that I think that they can start applying. So is there anything else that you want to share that we have not covered today?
I will say that when I go back and we look at the resume, I want to say that one thing that does not show, as I'm talking about the professional learning communities, you cannot see from my resume the impact of all of the lives that I have been touched by. All of the individual teachers and students and schools and school leaders, the superintendents, the board members, to see the efforts come together and how that has impacted me as a student. I grew up in Darlington, South Carolina. That's home. And grew up in a fairly rural area and grew up as a student of poverty. And to now be in a position in Greenville County Schools where I'm working with students of poverty, I'm working with the diverse population, increasingly more our English language learners, and looking to find ways that we address the needs of our changing community. I'm excited that those teachers and students and even the workers, the teachers that I work with as a principal, if I could tell all the stories of how they taught me, how they grew me as a leader, they're the reason that after 30 years, I'm still in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really great way to end this episode. Thank you again, Charlotte. It's been wonderful having you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Camber. I appreciate this opportunity to share something that you can see I'm very passionate about.
Yes, I think everybody listening can hear, and we will make sure people have ways to learn more about Elevate, learn how to connect with you, and that'll be in the show notes.
Thank you.
Thanks again for joining us on The Great Retention with Camber Parker. Before you go, remember this. Young professionals make up nearly half of the workforce today and are expected to jump at a rapid pace in this decade. What will you do to help them become the great leaders we need for our future workforce? Join us next time for more information on how to attract and retain top young professionals, including future young professionals. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to your podcast. This helps others who are interested in this topic find our show and more. And last but not least, make sure to share with your coworkers. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.